In my previous video, I introduced Marcion, whose version of Christianity is in some ways closer to modern-day liberal Christianity than it was to the mainstream brand that eventually won out and came to dominate the Roman Empire in the 4th century CE. Marcion took what he saw as the logical next step from the Gentile Christianity championed by Paul. Marcion was convinced that the good and loving God revealed in Jesus Christ was different from the vindictive God of the Jews who created and ruled this world. The inferior God of the Jews, to whom Jewish scriptures testify, is a jealous and vengeful God who requires sacrifices, commands the slaughter of entire peoples, and is inconsistent. Marcion argued that the loving God of Jesus is essentially antithetical to the God of the Jewish scriptures. This view of the Jewish God as judgmental and vengeful is a major theme of criticisms of Christianity today. There are, I expect, Christians who would prefer to jettison the Old Testament altogether and stick with the New, despite there being many passages in the Gospels that take the Old Testament's threatening tone into the next life. Jesus is quoted as mentioning hell as many as 15 times. He is depicted as uttering curses and confirming traditional Jewish law. For truly I say to you, until heaven and earth pass away, not an iota, not a dot will pass from the law until all is accomplished. But Marcion would have none of that. He wanted the new God to be one of peace, light, and love. For him, there was a fundamental contradiction between law and love, righteousness and grace. Marcion thought that true Christianity was flawed by the incompatibilities at the heart of its teaching. His solution was radical. Nothing less than a restatement of faith would do. And for Marcion, that restatement had to focus on what for him was the essential gospel: the love, mercy, and compassion displayed in the life and teachings of Jesus. This, for him, was all that was necessary. It was the blueprint for a new and pure humanity. There was no other truly Christian foundation for belief or morality. What Marcion couldn't bear was the note of judgment that went along with the preaching of the Christian message, the warnings that came with the teaching of the law, the call to obedience, and the threat of hell. Consequently, even the New Testament we now have was too dark and dissonant for Marcion. He proposed a sweeter, pocket-sized Bible consisting of a truncated version of Luke's Gospel and selectively edited versions of Paul's epistles. When all the cutting and pasting was finished, Marcion had the Christianity he wanted: a God of goodness and nothing else, a message of inspiring moral uplift, a Bible that does away with the uncomfortable bits about God's wrath and hell. If the Christianity of his time had accepted Marcion's update, it could not have had the administrative backbone, discipline, or punitive power necessary to merge with the Roman machinery of government and then suppress its rivals. In other words, Marcion's Christianity was built, like most New Age trends today, to soothe, flatter, and appease, not to forge a path for itself through a bloody, cutthroat world. If Christianity had foregone its stern Old Testament roots, as Marcion wanted it to, we would not have had the Crusades, the Reconquista, and the Jesuits. Nor would it have survived more or less until now. That, I believe, is why Islam too has lasted and in some ways thrived until today. In the Qur'an, we have compassion and forgiveness, but we also have the strong stuff that many claim to deplore in their religion: laws, penalties, ultimate judgment, and even Jahannam. And the same repulsion that many people feel for the God of the Old Testament animates the numerous critics of Islam who find it likewise judgmental and vengeful. The question for Muslims is, how can we justify a God who works like the Christian Old and New Testaments in two seemingly contradictory modes, loving and punishing? Can we have both? Or do we simply reject the harsh parts of the Qur'an and settle with Marcion into a state of soporific peace that ends quietly, surrounded by flowers, as at a funeral? The answer is coming, God willing, in video number 9.